The Green-Eyed Girl. Part 1. A mysterious encounter. In the heart of the bustling city, hidden away in a quiet alley, there stood an old bookstore. Unlike the modern glass-fronted shops around it, this bookstore had a charm of its own: tall wooden shelves, dim yellow lighting, and the scent of aged paper that wrapped around anyone who stepped inside. Ahmed, the young man who worked there, was not much of a talker. He spent most of his time lost in books, organizing shelves, and occasionally assisting customers. His life was simple, predictable, until one rainy evening changed everything. The evening was dark, with rain pattering against the windows and the distant murmur of traffic filling the silence. Ahmed was arranging books when the small bell on the door jingled. He glanced up. A girl stepped inside. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her green eyes shimmered like emeralds, glowing even under the dim bookstore lights. Her damp golden brown hair clung to her face, and she wore a long black coat that made her look even more mysterious. She walked straight to him. "Do you have a book called The Lost Letters?" she asked softly. Ahmed hesitated. That book was incredibly rare. Hardly anyone even knew about it. Still, he turned to check the shelves, and to his surprise, there was one copy. He pulled it out and handed it to her. She took the book, and for a brief moment, her fingers brushed against his. A strange sensation ran through him, a feeling of familiarity, as if he had met her before. She smiled. "This book is very important to me." And just like that, she was gone. Ahmed had met hundreds of customers before, but no one had ever lingered in his thoughts like that girl did. Days passed, and then she returned. Each time she visited, she asked for rare books, ones that were hard to find, and every time, Ahmed somehow managed to locate them. The more he spoke to her, the more intrigued he became. "Why do you only seek rare books?" he asked one day. She smiled mysteriously. "Because some stories are not meant for everyone. Only those who are ready can truly understand them. And you understand them." "Maybe," she said, her green eyes holding a secret he couldn't decipher. That night, Ahmed had a strange dream. He was standing in an ancient library, surrounded by towering bookshelves. The air smelled of parchment and ink, and there, in the center of the room, was the green-eyed girl, flipping through the pages of a book. Suddenly, she closed the book and looked straight at him. "Time is running out, Ahmed," she said. "You have to remember." Before he could ask anything, the dream faded. The next morning, when he arrived at the bookstore, she was already there, waiting for him. But this time, she wasn't smiling. "Ahmed," she said, her voice quieter than before. "You have to come with me." "Where?" "To the place where our story began." It was the exact same sentence he had heard in his dream. She led him through the city's older streets, past forgotten buildings, until they reached an abandoned library, one that had been closed for years. "This place," Ahmed whispered. "I've never been here." She stepped forward and pulled out an old book, its cover coated with dust. She flipped it open, revealing something that made Ahmed's breath catch in his throat. It was a drawing, an old sketch of a young man who looked exactly like him. Standing beside him in the sketch was a girl with striking green eyes. "How is this possible?" Ahmed whispered, feeling a chill run down his spine. Because, Ahmed, she said softly, this isn't the first time we've met. His mind reeled. Was this a coincidence? A trick? Or something deeper, something beyond time itself? The stories you read, the books I asked for, they weren't just books. Ahmed. They were pieces of our past, fragments of a story that has been lost. Until now. He stared at her, his heart pounding. You're saying we knew each other before? She nodded. Yes. And now, it's time for you to remember. Ahmed felt like his entire world had just shifted. Everything he knew, everything he believed in, was now uncertain. But one thing was clear: this girl was not just another customer. And the books she sought weren't ordinary books. Now, he had to choices: return to his simple, ordinary life, where everything would remain unchanged, or take a step into the unknown, uncover the truth, and rewrite the missing chapters of their story. Are you ready? She asked, extending her hand. Ahmed took a deep breath, and then he reached out and took her hand. The story was not over. It was only just beginning.